Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm sharing 4 ways to get the romance back. My guest, Maggie's marriage was full of destructive verbal abuse, which was affecting their children and had her looking for nearby apartments. Her husband was so angry, resentful, critical, and controlling. But today she says they have an indescribably deep connection, and she knows her husband wants to take care of her heart. They are having so much fun together, and when they do fight, it doesn't last long, and they can get back to their sweet spot fast. Her blended family feels healthy and strong. The Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award is from a publication that rhymes with mythology passé about how to know if you're better off ending your relationship, but it's likely to lead to the end of your relationship if you follow it. All that's coming up, but first I'm going to share 4 ways to get the romance back. Wouldn't it be a wonderful world if saying, "We need to talk," made him gaze into your eyes and describe all the ways he's so in love with you? Or if telling him how he needs to be more affectionate and attentive made him turn off the TV and leap up to gallantly sweep you off to the bedroom? Unfortunately, it doesn't work. No amount of criticism and complaining is attractive. But the more you do it, the more resistible you'll be, as you've probably experienced yourself if you're anything like I was. Still, you know he's capable of being sweeter than he's being. I mean, he turned on the charm in the beginning. Was that just to lure you in for the old bait and switch where you're now taken for granted while he lies around scratching himself like Al Bundy? I mean, if he's not taking initiative to be romantic and you can't tell him to do something about it, doesn't that mean you just have to suffer forever then and just get your romance needs by watching Hallmark movies? If you don't know what else to do, you might feel pretty hopeless and sad. After all, you're letting down that little girl that used to dream of being the princess who lives with her sweet, charming prince. Fortunately, there's plenty you can do to inspire him to be more romantic without saying a word about what he's not doing. If your dream is to revive the romance and make it last, here are 4 concrete steps you can take today to start feeling desired, taken care of, and special. Number 1, first, be excited. Be very excited. One step you can take is to decide to be happy to see him and happy to hear from him. Isn't that what you did back in the good old days when you were falling in love? What if you smiled so big when he came through the door? Or what if when he called you, you answered by saying, "Hi"? What if when he texted you about something mundane like groceries, you responded with, "OMG, it's you"? He might sneer or reject you. True. It's a risk. Or maybe that seems too fake because maybe you're not happy to see him or hear from him. Maybe you're waiting to see the look on his face first to find out if the Cold War is still on. You can come up with plenty of reasons not to be happy when you interact with him. But if you are happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. And there's not much anybody else can do to make a dent in that, even if they're really cranky or suspicious. I mean, after all, you're just focusing on what you like and what you're grateful for. No one can really truly complain about that. I mean, they would sound silly. And since your husband has the male leading role in your happily ever after story, why not just fast forward to that part of the movie? Choosing your delight is an exercise in gratitude. And gratitude is the most powerful intimacy skill of all because it does double duty. It reminds you how happy you are to see him, and he responds to you better when you're happy. It's a very deliberate way to choose love, to make more love in the world. And Watch how quickly he starts to mirror your excitement at interacting with you when he sees how happy you are to interact with him. And if that's what you're after, then just being excited to see him will be 10 times more effective than any State of the Union address could ever be. Number 2, figure out what you want. You might be thinking that you do know what you want already, and it's for him to kiss you passionately and maybe dip you while he whispers how breathtakingly beautiful you are. Or maybe it's just to have him initiate something physical, holding hands even. Or maybe it's that he would take you on a romantic getaway or just a date. My question for you is, what would you be doing on that getaway or date specifically? Would you be trying the new Ethiopian restaurant? Would you be taking a Sunday drive, relaxing on the beach, stand-up paddleboarding or snowboarding, or getting a massage at a spa or a hot chocolate at the mall? Would you be seeing the seasonal blooms or maybe the hot springs? Would you be watching the new Netflix series on the couch or the ball drop in Times Square on New Year's Eve? Once you know what you want, you're in an excellent position for some hot romance. Because without that information, he won't know how to please you. So how can he? But once he has that precious knowledge of your desires, he's in a position to be your hero. Once you have a clear vision of exactly the outcome you want, express your desire in a way that inspires, like this. I would love to try the new Ethiopian restaurant. Notice you're not asking him for anything. There's no expectation placed on him at all. And that means no pouty face if he doesn't hop to it. That would be controlling, which makes you just as resistible as complaining or criticizing. Instead, you're just putting your desire out there, just sharing the excitement of being a woman who knows what she wants. Kind of the way a kid would say, I want Iron Man Legos. Beverly had that excitement when she expressed her desire to stay at an extravagant hotel. There was zero expectation attached because she was sure it was never going to happen. It was just way out of their ballpark financially until for her birthday, he drove her to that extravagant hotel. Beverly felt like a princess. When they pulled up, her husband had a big, loving smile as he watched her face light up with surprise and delight. What he couldn't see was her heart about to burst with gratitude. This hero going to any lengths to fulfill her desires was the same man who 10 months earlier wouldn't even go out to dinner with her because he wanted nothing to do with her. Number 3, apply the best aphrodisiac on the planet for men. If your man won't even make love to you, much less such grand gestures, again, there's no need to sit around twiddling your thumbs, just hoping. I'm not talking about telling him, oh, we need to have sex, or pointing out how long it's been since the last time, which is the same as complaining. I tried that plenty of times, and trust me, it is not that sexy at all. Rather, you can make the first move by showing that you're available for sex and just allowing him to initiate. And if you're thinking, yeah, well, I've tried that and you don't know my man, well, you're not alone. Tony would wait for her husband in her skimpiest negligee, but when he walked through the door and saw her, she might as well have been wearing the garbage man's uniform. That's the reaction she saw on his face. Well, if that's your situation too, there's probably something else getting in the way of the intimacy you deserve and something no amount of lingerie can fix. Chances are what's gone missing is this big aphrodisiac. And it's not ginseng or pheromone perfume or oysters. No, the biggest aphrodisiac for men is respect. And there's a simple way to restore it if it's gone missing, using these 7 words. They are, I apologize for being disrespectful when I, and you fill in the blank authentically. That's what Tony did. And now all it takes to get steamy is a kiss. Seriously. So if you go that route, There's a serious side effect, however. You might feel like you are wearing pheromone perfume that actually works. Number 4, change your perspectives. It can be so easy to see the glass half empty in your relationship, all the evidence of him not caring enough to make an effort or take you into consideration piles up until it's hard to see anything else. The more you collect such evidence, the more it snowballs. That's because you are a powerful manifester and what you focus on increases. So, what if you were to focus on all that he's doing right? Whoa, whoa. All from where you're standing, it may be hard to find a single thing he's doing right. Well, does he go to work to provide for the family or change the filter on the air conditioning so you have clean air to breathe? Does he romp with the kids at the end of the day? Even in those cases, your empty glass alarms may be sounding. Well, he works so much, he barely has time for us. He waits 2 months to change the filter. He gets the kids all riled up at bedtime. If you could hear the heart message behind his gestures, however clumsy and imperfect they may be, all of them would be acts of love. So next time he does the dishes when you're tired or takes the kids to the park so you can enjoy a quiet afternoon at home, it's exciting because now you have the opportunity to catch him doing something good. Expressing your gratitude not only gives you a powerful new set of perspectives, it inspires him to want to do more when he sees that he can add to your happiness. Now that you're sporting fancy new perspectives, it's time for a toast because glasses are fuller everywhere until your cup is overflowing. You might even find that what you have now is even better than the excitement of your honeymoon phase because, well, it's a mature and lasting love. The good news is that with these steps, you don't have to choose. You can have both peace and passion. Which step will you experiment with first to rekindle the romance at your house? If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. My guest Maggie's marriage was full of destructive verbal abuse, which was affecting their children and had her looking for nearby apartments. Her husband was so angry, resentful, critical, and controlling. But today, she says, they have an indescribably deep connection, and she knows her husband wants to take care of her heart. They are having so much fun together, and when they do fight, it doesn't last long, and they can get back to their sweet spot fast. Her blended family feels healthy and strong. She's going to tell us what she did so you can do it too. Maggie, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honored, truly honored to be on this podcast.
Oh, thank you. Well, let's start with the battle days. Sounds like there was some pain at your house. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, well, like you said in the intro, we're a blended family. We've been together for 6 years. So obviously second marriage for both of us. I'll give you a little bit of background. Like in the beginning, I felt so safe, loved, special, adored, all those wonderful things. And I really felt like for the first time, I was in an adult relationship because my previous marriage, I felt like my ex-husband's mother, but that's a whole other story. My current husband, he's so strong, assertive, principled. He's loyal, a high achiever, and he's silly and funny and really trustworthy and loving, of course. All of those things I wanted in a partner because my ex-husband, well, he cheated on me and left for another woman. So I kind of felt like the only adult in the relationship. But it was great in the beginning. It was so lovely. But early on, just after, the so-called honeymoon phase, we had some challenges with our ex-partners. Both had mental health issues. His ex had substance abuse issues, which caused many problems for my poor stepkids. They're a bit older, and so they could comprehend what was going on. We also had a lot of other major life stressors that were totally out of our control. So we were on high alert for a very long time. And it kind of cut short that honeymoon phase, that courtship. And eventually all that stress started to affect our relationship, obviously. Things felt so out of control. We both became controlling in our very unique and different ways, even though I never thought I was controlling. Yeah. As I said before, my husband, very strong and assertive. And when he's under stress, it came out his controlling nature came out, and he was quick to anger and started micromanaging and really criticizing me. And for me, under that kind of stress, I get super anxious, needy, so needy, and controlling. We are basically like a powder keg ready to explode. And explode we did. Oh my goodness. We had huge blow up fights once or twice per week at least. They were nasty, and I would definitely say they were verbally abusive. I can't tell you how many times I cowered and cried in my closet and bathroom. Of course, it was all my husband's fault. He would have big issues with his ex, and I was always there to be helpful, offering advice and telling him how he could handle it better with his kids. That also led to a huge fight. We finally decided to go to counseling. That didn't work. He literally stormed out of the session, and we never went back. And then, in my so-called control, I didn't think I was controlling, but no. I found out later I was. So I would send him articles about compassion and empathy. I diagnosed him with all those horrible pathologies. It's like, I was just looking for answers. I would tell him what he needed to do to fix his anger. And I truly believe that was the only way we could save our marriage, if he fixed his anger. I read and researched everything under the sun to find out what was wrong with my husband and why he couldn't handle his anger. Meanwhile, he's calling me a victim repeatedly. And I thought that was ridiculous. Of course, I'm not the victim. Of course, I'm a victim. You're yelling at me. Of course I'm the victim, right? We also had different. Go ahead.
If he storms out of counseling too, right? I think that's a lot of evidence. See, there you go. He can't even go to he won't even go to counseling. He storms out. He's got an anger problem. That's proof.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. And on top of that, we also have very different political views, and that led to even more fights. And then because I was trying to solve this anger problem in the best way I thought, and that was by doing everything I could to take things off of his plate, because I was doing stuff around the house more than I needed to, telling the kids to keep quiet when he was in a bad mood, basically walking on eggshells the whole time. And then, of course, he would complain about me not doing something right around the house or with parenting. And it would fill me up with such resentment. I would immediately get defensive, and another fight would ensue. Honestly, I was the perfect victim and martyr. I felt like nothing I did was enough. So I thought doing more would give me the kind words and appreciation I so desperately needed, because that's really all I ever wanted for him. And guess what? Doing more didn't work. It just didn't work.
Oh, but it does sound so painful. It's such a stuck place, right? Such a hopeless place. I remember feeling similarly. And I mean, you probably had no idea how you were ever going to break through that and get to the other side. I mean, you tell me, how did you feel when that was happening?
Well, it was a mess. And it got to the point where I threatened to leave so many times, hoping that would get him to change his behavior. And to my surprise, it didn't work. at all. My husband kept telling me that I didn't know how to be happy. He told me that I didn't know how to be happy. You don't know how to be happy. I again dismissed that because, of course, I know how to be happy. He's just not making me happy because he's angry all the time.
How can you be happy around somebody who's so mad and so
right.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So he would do like these nice things for me, and we'd still end up getting into a fight like right after that, which is, I thought was really weird. But I thought because of all my resentment that he should be doing these things for me to make up for his bad behavior. So I didn't receive graciously. I didn't thank him for that. No, you owe me. You owe me. I was bean counting. I
He
was
was
a
just
bean
working off
counter.
his enormous debt to you by doing. So what kinds of nice things would he do?
Well, I'll give you one example. He doesn't like doing yard work all that much. He's a wonderful provider, so he has people come in to do our yard work. But I really wanted a garden, vegetable garden. So he and I spent all day creating this vegetable garden, and it's like it brings me such joy. And I was in that the whole time because I thought he's going to get upset with me because he is putting all this effort into it and he's going to resent me for it. And how dare he resent me for it because he owes me. And then so I was in that needless emotional turmoil. So having anxiety, I wasn't present in the moment. And guess what? We ended up arguing. Not specifically about that, but just because my anxiety was high. Yeah.
You're already anticipating like this is just going to lead to more misunderstanding and disconnection. And even though it was something you really wanted, it sounds like it's not really his thing, but he wanted to give it to you so much that he spent the whole day doing it. So I get it. It looks like using your current perspectives, you look back at that and think, oh, what a missed opportunity for connection and gratitude, intimacy with
Yeah.
your husband. Yeah. Yeah.
And in that ensuing argument, that's what he said. You don't know how to be happy.
Oh, which probably made you even more mad.
Right. Because again, of course I know how to be happy. Of course I
Right.
do.
Yes.
It's all your
Naturally.
fault that I'm not happy.
It's just, yeah. You're just trying to blame me. You're trying to blame the victim.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And to add to that, like our parenting style is very, very different. I try to use, positive parenting, the maternal side,
Right.
and
Right.
he is definitely a lot more masculine and a little bit more heavy-handed. And there were lots of fights about that. So, yeah, it just felt like everything. We're fighting about everything, household stuff, finances, even though he's a really good provider, parenting, how he was handling, issues with his ex, like just everything we were fighting about.
Sounds
And then
exhausting. Yeah.
it was so exhausting. And my anxiety was so high. I'm pretty sure it started affecting my health. Like I was exhausted. So it was tough. And then the pandemic hit. And that's when I knew we couldn't do this anymore. We were spending a lot of time together, obviously. There were political and social issues that were even more in the fore that we didn't see eye to eye on. And you can guess how well that went. And that's when I really started to look for places to rent because I really thought he didn't love me. Because how could someone treat another this way and say all these horrible things if they love them? I was done. I was done.
Yeah. So you were ready to at least separate, if not divorce, it sounds like.
Yep, it was awful. And it was, you feel sick to your stomach. You think, oh, how did I choose this? Oh, I chose this guy maybe because I was insecure or lacked self-confidence or, I tried to figure out, oh, I made a huge, huge mistake marrying this guy. Huge.
And there's kids involved, right? Yours
Mm-hmm.
and his.
Yep.
So you were probably, I'm sure that was on your mind too, like putting the kids through. This would be their second divorce that they'd
It
all been.
would be. But then I thought, but they don't need to be around all this anger. It'd be better for them to
Right.
be away from it because they don't need any more of that in their lives. They've already dealt with so much. So I thought this was the lesser of two evils, really.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. All right. So you're looking around for apartments to move out. And then what happened?
Well, I was on the fence. So I had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I really wanted it to work because, of all the good that I see in him, still, even in during our worst time, like I loved him. I loved him. So like I said before, I did all this research to fix my marriage and my husband. And I think I Googled something about fixing your husband's anger, and your Facebook or your framework popped up. So yeah. And I thought, okay, whatever, I'm desperate. I'll give this a try. I read through it and I'm like, okay, this makes sense. I am very procedural. Like if somebody, I'm good at following direction. I'm very good at following direction. If somebody gives me guidelines to follow, I'm in. Like I work out that way. I write essays for my job that way. I edit that way for my job. Like I love that. You tell me,
structure.
Oh my gosh, love structure. That's why I love my husband, because he's so structured. And so in quick succession, I joined the Adored Wives Facebook group. I found your books. I then found the Ridiculously Happy Wives group, and I made the leap. I'm like, okay, let's do this. What do I got to lose? And I remember, going through the modules in the Ridiculously Happy Wives group, going through those modules and thinking, oh my gosh, this should be for my husband. What? This isn't for me. This is for my husband. And I remember my first Facebook post. I'm like, I wish these skills were for my husband. He fit the bill. He even talks how you used to talk, that it's all in the name of efficiency. He talks like that.
Yes.
So I'm just like, this is not for, I still was like, I'm not the problem. He's the problem because he's controlling, he's critical, he's all these things. So you know what I did? I delved into those modules. I listened to your books on repeat. Anytime I was working out, I know some people listen to music. I listened to Laura Doyle. I joined the group coaching calls, like anything. Because again, I was so desperate. The first thing I realized is my self-care sucked. It sucked so hard. It was non-existent. And I had never really known what it meant to make yourself or myself happy. I truly didn't think it was my responsibility. I knew intellectually, but in practice, I didn't know what that meant or what that looked like. So I started being really present when I was doing self-care, like making a tea, chatting with friends, going for a walk, working out, joining group calls, obviously, supporting and getting supported on that Facebook group, which a lifeline, I'll tell you. So all of these things were self-care, but I didn't really put that label on it. So I started to affirming that it was self-care. And that was so helpful. So when I did that, I began to become really present in that moment. Like, for example, on my walks, I started noticing things that brought me pleasure, like the birds, or I'm nerdy, seeing different types of mushrooms and fungi growing on like felled trees. And then I found out that I love walking in puddles. I love walking in puddles. It brings me so much joy. Like, it's so silly, but I guess it's that inner child, right? I would get on my boots and I would go, we have like a forest, a nice little nature area nearby, and I would find puddles. I would seek out puddles.
I love it.
Yeah, it brought me so much joy. And the second thing I did with the skills, because self-care is one of the first and most important skill, is that gratitude piece. I'm an anxious person. So whenever I felt anxious about my husband's moods, worrying that he was going to explode or that we would have a big blow up fight, I would drop and do 10 gratitudes. Sometimes, and sometimes it still does, but it feels like eating glass. And
Oh,
because I don't want to do it, I don't want
no.
no. But and then sometimes it's super, super easy. And then I started expressing them to my husband. And at first, he would tell me he didn't need them. And I thought that was baloney. So I kept doing it.
You're like,
I
yes,
kept
you
doing
do.
it. Yeah.
It's so
And guess what?
smart.
He loves it. He loves it.
Oh,
And as well, like in the beginning of using the skills, there was a whole lot of duct tape, whole lot of duct tape. Yeah. So that meant just keeping my mouth shut when bait was coming, flying at me over and over and over again. So I think those three skills, that self-care, gratitude, expressing gratitude, and duct tape
yeah.
were huge for me in the beginning. And they were simple. They were really easy to do. And I'm all about small chunks, taking small chunks. And
Yeah.
so
Baby
I
steps.
got,
Yeah.
yeah, baby steps. And I got really good at it. And during that self-care piece too, I became more accountable for my anxiety. I wasn't looking to my
Ah.
husband to fix it and to make me happy. I was responsible for my happiness. That is huge for me,
It's
Laura. Like,
huge. It's huge. In fact, I want to dig into this a little bit because I think you're dropping some pretty big wisdom bombs right here. And I just want to make sure we kind of clarify this. So
sure.
you were describing, you'd say the anxiety would start to come up and then you do a drop and do 10. So tell me about that. So what was the anxiety about? Like, give us an example of like you'd start to feel it rising in your body, or how would this happen for you? Just walk us through that.
Yeah.
So if you would.
So it would be predicated on my husband's moods mostly. He would be in a bad mood because of some external work or whatever, or, parenting or something like that. And in the bad old days, because he would sometimes he'd take it out on other people. And so I would assume that he doesn't love me when he did that. Because how could anyone, take their anger, their moods, or their frustration out on somebody else if they love them? I just thought that it doesn't compute for me.
Yeah.
So those gratitudes, I would be okay, but he does love me. And here are all the examples. Here are the gratitudes that I am, like he pays for almost everything. He is a wonderful provider. He is silly. He has a great sense of humor. He takes care of, like, he takes care of it himself and really does. He's really good at that. And his health, and he takes care of everyone he loves. And those were the types of gratitudes I started saying to myself. And sometimes it was really hard because my
Yeah.
anxiety was bigger than the gratitude sometimes. So I had to do it over and over and over again.
I love this. I think this is this is just so valuable what you're sharing about how you did this, because it wasn't easy to just shift gears. You were like, oh my gosh, he doesn't love me, which is like you're going into a really painful place, and that would
Mm-hmm.
kind of amp your anxiety. And then you made yourself just totally go, no, we're going to focus over here. How did you do
Mm-hmm.
that? How did you make yourself shift that focus into the gratitudes?
It was hard in the beginning because
Yeah.
like it was a well-worn path, me going into
Yeah.
needless emotional turmoil. So, and I'm still working on it. And I think I will always have to work on this, but I choose happiness. I really want to, but to answer your question, it was hard, but now I recognize it because I can see, because I practice it. I recognize, oh, there you go, brain. No, come back, go this way.
No, going
So,
down a dark alley. We're not doing that.
right. What good will it bring?
We're going
What
to walk in this forest over here with the puddles instead of
exactly?
yeah, I love it. Well, I think that's such a great, and you were saying it made you really take responsibility for your anxiety. So how is your anxiety now?
You know what? It's still there. It's still on the surface. It's been with me for many, many years, but I am not reaching out externally to try and fix it. uh, like, I would hop on my phone and scroll on Facebook. I still do that a little bit, but um, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. It's just I'm accountable. I can do those gratitudes. I know how to get myself out. I have the confidence in
Yeah.
my ability to get myself out of anxiety, or to know, okay, you're anxious right now, but guess what? It's not permanent. It's not.
Mm.
You'll get there. It
Might not
will
be true.
be.
Might not
It
even be
might
true.
it might not
Yeah.
even be true, right? Like, sometimes your brain leads you astray. I use that with my kids too when they're nervous about something, right? I'm like, you know what? 99% of your worries never come to fruition. So, yeah.
Ah, I love it. I love
Mhm.
it. That's powerful. I love that, Maggie, that you're able to I mean, that's a pretty big shift. And I hear you saying you feel more confident as a result of just having this skill in your back pocket where you can change your focus, switch to gratitude. So
Yeah,
well
it's
done. I love
amazing.
that. I love
Yeah.
that. All right. So you started with those three: the self care, the gratitude, and the duct tape, which just means kind of keeping your mouth shut when you're sort of if you don't have something nice to say kind of thing, you keep your mouth shut and kind of preserve your dignity. And how did your husband respond to all this?
Well, he just didn't respond. There weren't those arguments, right? They didn't. I wasn't being helpful. I wasn't teaching him how to be a better person, because that's man, did I ever try to teach him that? I wasn't doing that anymore, and I don't know if he really noticed it at that point, but I noticed it, and I'm like, oh, I'm on to something here, right? So
Yes, yes,
so
yes,
it gave
yeah.
me confidence in those skills. So and then something I started experimenting in, and I really think this is when that shift happened. I started experimenting with one of the skills. It's called a spouse fulfilling prophecy, which, well, you can describe it. You do it best. So, for spouse fulfilling prophecy, I guess.
Oh, I want to. It's so much more interesting to hear you. Everyone's told
Sure,
me. All
sure.
right, so,
Well,
like
I
you.
wasn't very good at it in the beginning. So basically, I wanted to kind of find evidence that he wasn't critical, controlling, micromanaging, and I wanted to. It's like saying a lie, saying something so untrue, so unfair that you just don't believe. Again, it's like that eating glass, right? It's just like,
Yes,
oh
yes,
no, he's gonna see right through me.
yeah.
Oh no, he didn't. He didn't. So I was bad at it at the beginning, and then but I was determined because all of those other three skills were working so well for me. So I'm like, these probably will go well too. So I stuck with it and landed on calling him Mr. Easygoing.
Oh, I love
Right?
it. I
Yeah.
love it. That felt
Yeah.
like just the total opposite of the truth. It sounds like.
Yep. It
Okay,
did.
so you're just lying to him. It
I
felt like. It
yeah.
felt like, yeah. So,
And then I stacked the skills a bit. So I would say Mr. Easygoing and poured on the gratitude. So whenever I saw evidence of him being Mr. Easygoing, because he certainly can be, I would tack on gratitudes, like, and say, oh, I love how that's just rolling off your back. Like, and I tell him that, like, I find that really sexy, things like that. And I really looked for evidence, and obviously still do, that he was easygoing and that he did love me, that he did love the kids, that we weren't some big burden to him. I also used humor. Humor is huge in our relationship. We are a silly bunch. And I found if I had enough self care, I could use humor like a champ to deflect baits. And
oh,
remember how he said I could never be happy, which was
yeah.
typically said after he did something nice for me. Well, I started receiving graciously. So that was another thing that really worked for me. I thanked him for all that he does for me, even like little things like taking out the garbage and, being such amazing provider. And I stopped completely trying to control his bad moods, because I learned from like those amazing, ridiculously happy wives group calls that walking on eggshells is a form of control. So I really focused on staying on my own paper. So not trying to control what he's doing and his moods, and he can handle it, because I always thought he was really bad at getting himself out of those moods. So I had to help him. I had to teach him. I had to coax him. But really, he's actually pretty good at getting himself out of those moods. He is an adult. And I found out too that whenever I was on his paper, trying to control him, that it would just ramp up my anxiety as well. And, I learned as well those differing political views. I used "I hear you," and that obviously worked like a charm. We don't really have those political rants anymore.
You're kidding.
He doesn't have those political rants anymore. Yeah, because because he feels heard. We don't talk politics that much. I say that for other people, but we just don't have those big fights over politics, because I'm just using "I hear you." And I got some great advice from another member of the program that those are political problems. They're not marriage problems. And that really resonated with me. It really did. Why bring that into the relationship too? No, that's something separate.
Yeah,
so,
I love that. So
right,
that no longer destroys the peace at your house to have those.
Exactly. And I also started expressing my desires, like what I wanted. And for the most part, he fulfills them. And I found out he really wants to make me happy. Who knew?
What? Are you sure?
Right?
I love it. So you have evidence that he's trying to make you happy?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I have lots of evidence. Like, I'll express that I would love to go out for dinner. Guess what we do? We go out for dinner. If I'm too exhausted to make dinner, like last night, he orders in. I'll express I would love to order in. Guess what? We're ordering in, So
I love it.
Yeah. And I think it took about 2 months for me to start notice some changes in me and our relationship. We're still having arguments, but we bounced back from them quicker. I would apologize if needed. I took total accountability, and that's what I love about the skills, is taking accountability and making sure that your side of the street's clean, because that is huge. It's like next level grown up. Really,
I love that. Wait, that's a great way to explain it. Next level grown up is being accountable.
I also wouldn't chase him, apologizing over and over again to try and make everything better, like I did in the bad old days, because my anxiety, I was one and done, as you say. And that's all I do. And I leave. I might feel super anxious and want to fix it, but I don't. I just leave him alone. And again, he's an adult. He can pull himself out of those moods. So he does that. That was huge for me. The arguments are getting fewer and farther between. And again, like, the great thing about us is that we've always been super affectionate, flirty, silly, tender, and sweet to one another. So, unless we were in a Cold War or walking on eggshells. So when it came to expressing those gratitudes, I would be able to add in a few pecks on the cheek or a butt smack, just really flirty things that really augmented those gratitudes. And that really helped. But it wasn't until the 3-month mark where I really noticed a change, and my husband started to really become more aware of our shifting dynamic. And I might get teary, but he started expressing his love for me and gratitude for me, and that's all I've ever wanted. So I'll give you an example. This one instance, he came over and kissed me like out of the blue, and said he's never been so in love with me as he is right now, and that our relationship's the best it's ever been. So that's so incredible. And then, but that's not all. There's another instance where he told me the reason why he thought we were doing so well, of course, having no idea I had been practicing the skills, is that we were giving each other exactly what the other person needs. And you know what else started happening? He started apologizing when he gets angry and has an outburst, like so huge. And again, I'm going to get teary. There's one example of an apology where he apologized and said My goal is to ensure you feel loved, comfortable, and secure. Um, he said, because I want to spend the rest of my days with you, as long as I can with you. And then he created a hashtag for our relationship. So it's no wasted days together. So hashtag NWDT. And so whenever we're arguing, if we're having a minor tiff, I will hashtag that. And he's like, thanks for the reminder. Like, honestly, he's the sweetest. He really is.
He sounds so sweet. He sounds so wonderful. And are you sure this is the same man that was like verbally abusive and so angry and controlling and critical?
Right?
It sounds like he had a personality transplant.
A little bit. But you know what? I think I did too. Right? Like, I think the biggest change I saw was in me as I worked with the skills. Like, honestly, my self-confidence is increasing. I'm making sure I'm happy and honoring myself. I won't engage in those arguments. Like, even if he says something hurtful now, because sometimes he will, I will say that hurt, because saying ouch, which is one of the skills, it doesn't work for our relationship. And if I say that hurt, I will walk away. And that feels so empowering. I don't think I've ever really honored myself. I've always making sure everybody else's emotions come first and everyone else is happy. And now I'm learning that this doesn't have to be. And I'm so looking forward to working on this and seeing my self-confidence grow more and more. Like, honestly, it's really exciting to see my transformation. It's great. It's great.
So I love this piece where you're saying that hurt, and it just feels really honoring to Maggie. Like, you didn't leave Maggie in that moment to go take care of someone else. You stayed with yourself, and even took yourself out of the room for safety. It sounds like.
Yeah. I didn't want, you don't want to escalate things, and the best way to do that is to honor yourself and just walk away. And you know what? It works. It works, and it maintains the intimacy. And guess what? That's when he apologizes, when I don't get defensive. Who knew?
Who knew? No, tremendous. And you're saying all these things. I mean, you've done just a tremendous job, Maggie. It's incredible what you've done. I really hear every skill at work in your marriage, and you're experiencing all these benefits from it, and then you're sharing them with all of us, which is so great, so inspiring. And I just want to get a sense of, how long did you find that article on Google that had you kind of dive into the intimacy skills?
5 months ago.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. So what a big transformation in a pretty short period of time. I mean, would you have believed 5 months ago that you'd be telling me how sweet and wonderful he is, and how his goal is to make you, what was it? Secure, loved, secure, and
comfortable, loved, comfortable, and secure. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you believe you'd be here?
No. And you're asking me that question and I have goosebumps. Like, no way. No way.
It's not possible, right? But then here you are. So it feels like a miracle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was also your own doing, right? When you're so cute. You're like, I love accountability. That's really fun. And it can be kind of also painful in a way, right? It takes some courage, takes some humility to get to that. But you've really cultivated those characteristics in yourself. So it's pretty amazing. Let's just hear a little more about what your relationship is like now, if you would.
Yeah, our relationship, there's barely any fighting, like barely. Like, we'll have minor tiffs, and we get right back to where we were. If he's in a bad mood because of work, like he's got a stressful job.
He's a human, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he'll come home. But instead of taking it personally, I'm like, oh, right, that's a work thing. That doesn't mean he doesn't love me, or that, that's a work thing. That's not a marriage thing. That's a work thing. So yeah, and he's so much gentler with the kids. I think everything felt so out of control in his life. Even his marriage. So it just made everything and augmented all of his stress because nothing felt stable. But now this big piece of his life feels stable. So guess what? He becomes more stable. And then he is also becoming more accountable for his behavior. He's mirroring me. It's wonderful. He tells me gratitudes all the time. Like he does. And he'll just he he's always been really affectionate and I always dismiss that. But that's how he shows me he loves me. And I just was like, oh, he's just, being, my husband and that's what he does. But I never took it as something wonderful, but it is so wonderful. I'm so lucky. So it's,
Yes.
you know what? It was always there. It was always there. You just got to look for it and you got to water it and cultivate it. The seeds were there.
Yes. What about your kids? You have this blended family. How many kids do you guys have together?
4.
Okay. How has this affected your children?
Um, well, in the bad old days, it was bad. There was lots of turmoil, obviously, and certainly wasn't fair to them. But I think that they see a happy, healthy relationship now. And that's what I wanted for them ultimately, is to see how, two people can love each other and respect each other and not be petty and, not always getting into fights, sometimes big, but sometimes small over silly things. No, I want, and we are a team. And that's one of the gratitudes I express to him all the time. Like, we are a team. And I love that about this. And I can give you an example. He was frustrated because I didn't lock the back door. And he was going to say, he stopped himself from saying, like, oh, I wish I had a partner to help me out. And he's like, whoa, I have a wonderful partner. You do help me out. We are such a good team. So he's checking himself now. And he says that in front of the kids. Like, so I don't know. Like, that's the kind of stuff I want them to see and I want to emulate. And I want them to be able to strive for that in their relationship.
Must feel so good to be able to be that role model of a healthy
Dignity.
relationship. Yes,
Yeah.
dignity. You have your dignity. And he sounds like, I don't know, Mr. Easygoing.
He definitely is. He definitely is. And he can be. And you know what? When he isn't, he gets back there. And I always know he will get back. Just like my anxiety, it's going to be there, but it'll go away and I'll get back to my equilibrium. And he gets back there and he's a grown up and he can do it all by himself without my help.
Oh, I love it. Well, what is your tip for a woman who's listening? Maybe she's got, or she feels like she's got verbal abuse at her house and just constant fighting. And she's thinking it's better for the kids if she separates. What's her tip? What's your tip for her to get what you have now, where it feels like you're truly a team and you're just a couple of sillies together who laugh and have fun and there's lots of physical affection? What's your tip for her?
Well, the best thing that I ever did was join the Ridiculously Happy Wives group. My tip would be to do that just because it's so, just take that leap because and get involved in the group coaching calls, get active on the Facebook group. I've developed some amazing friendships with other members. And now we keep ourselves accountable with the skills. It's such an amazing and beautiful support system because honestly, I don't know if I would have been able to get myself out of that victim mentality, that martyr mentality, just by reading the books. I needed that support. I definitely needed that extra support. And because you can gain so much wisdom from other women. And that's what happened to me. And listening to the coaches and their experience. And I feel like I wouldn't have been able to do it without that. And so I would say, take the leap and join the club. That's what I would say.
It is a wonderful club. There's nothing like it. And it's true. You end up being friends, developing these amazing friendships because really amazing women are in that group, in the Ridiculously Happy Wife group. What would you say to Maggie if you could go back in time and talk to her before she knew what you know now? What would you say to her?
Ah, my goodness. Poor Maggie.
Yeah.
I would say there's hope. There's hope out there for you, because I honestly thought I was in a dead end, that I made a terrible mistake. Um, but that not to give up, not to give up. And I do believe, you know, I was led to you for a reason, and and you know, I will be using the skills for the rest of my life, and I will need to use them for the rest of my life. And I am just so happy that I found you. And Maggie, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. It will. It will be okay.
I love
Yeah.
that. Maybe just give her a hug and be like,
Yeah.
there's good stuff around the corner here. You just can't see it yet, but now you
Yeah.
can.
Don't give
And
up.
you did a great job just shining a light on it for all the rest of us. What a tremendous example you are of what's possible. I think you're just a rock star, a marriage rock star, a wife rock star. And I think the world needs more women like you, because marriage is so important. And here you are with a strong family, a strong blended family, because you did all this stuff that felt like chewing broken glass. And but it sounds like it was all worth it.
Definitely. Definitely. I'm so happy. Yes.
Well, thanks so much for sharing the whole story and inspiring us today, Maggie. It's been great.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. And I appreciate you and all the coaches. It's been wonderful.
If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. Now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice that's making me super crabby this week was sent to me by a student who is a repeat contributor to the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award. She has a real nose for sniffing out vapid relationship advice, which she then sends to me so we can all be offended by it, which I love. This is very objectionable advice you've sent me. So this is my anonymous shout out to you. When you can easily discern bad relationship advice, it's a pretty good sign that you've developed some wisdom for what's actually beneficial to a lasting, thriving marriage. So thanks for the great submission, by which I mean the terrible submission. I'm delighted, by which I mean I'm disgusted. You get me. The advice is from a publication that rhymes with mythology passé, and it's about how to know if you'd be better off ending your relationship. There's lots to roll my eyes at here, but this bit really takes the cake. It says, when you are always frustrated by a partner and you feel that you need a break from them far more often than being with them provides a break, that's a sign that something is seriously off. It could be a sign that being with them is always going to be more taxing than a relationship should be. So, blah, blah, ugh. You know what caused a lot of frustration in my relationship in the bad old days, making it more taxing than a relationship should be? Trying to control my husband, trying to get him to be more conscientious about his spending or do more around the house or spend more time with me. That's exhausting. And because it's so ineffective, it's also super frustrating and taxing. And whenever I start to feel frustrated or exhausted in my marriage now, it's a sure sign that I'm trying to control something or someone that's out of my control again. And you know who has all the power to fix that in my experience? My husband. Just kidding. Psych. Okay, well, that's who I thought had the power when I wanted to end my marriage. But if I had ended my marriage because being with him was more taxing than I thought a relationship should be, that wouldn't have gotten anywhere near the problem I was experiencing, which was being scared about practically everything and believing that I'd be safe if I could arrange the world outside of me the way I thought it should be, especially my husband, John. So that was a very seductive counterfeit solution to the problem I had, which was that I was scared a lot. So I tried to control a lot and I wore myself out a lot. I was like those cat videos you see where it's just trying to intimidate the other cat it just noticed in the mirror. You know, he's jumping, he's hiding, he's hissing, he's scowling. He's silly and ridiculous. He's wearing himself out. I know it can seem so real, the idea that he's frustrating you and that he's never going to change. I thought so too. But it was always an illusion. My frustration was mine. It was how I decided to view the world, including him, a main character in my world. My exhaustion was mine from wasting my breath, my energy, and my focus on the things that aren't up to me. And when I learned how to focus on what I can control, like my happiness, my gratitude, my desires, my attitude, it was a lot less frustrating. So for those reasons, the advice, when you are always frustrated by a partner, it could be a sign that being with them is always going to be more taxing than a relationship should be, is the very, very, very worst relationship advice I have heard all week. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I'll share 3 ways to deal with a miserable husband. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that the first thing John said to me this morning was, "What do you call a piece of corn that joins the army?" A kernel.